All right, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Toon podcast. We are the Southern Hemisphere's best and only dedicated podcast to all things Newcastle United. And I've got Jack with me tonight to talk about and celebrate the amazing win at the City Ground early on this morning for us, or late evening for everyone back in the UK. How are you doing, Jack?
I am fantastic. I've had a good day. I think winning a football match on a Saturday morning for us is probably the best time to do it because it just sets the weekend up really nicely. So I've been, and the manner of the win, which we'll obviously get into, but you just feel buzzing all day. You just feel so good all day about things, and it's already been a good week after beating Wolves. So what a big 6 days for us. It's just been absolutely amazing. I've been out in Brisbane today where it's been extremely hot, but I was out seeing some friends and having some lunch, so that was really good. So yeah, it's been a really good day today, all because of Newcastle United, and it's nice to say that again.
It is indeed. So if you've been living under a rock for the last 14 hours or so, you may not have noticed that Newcastle United came away from the City Ground with a 2-1 win and a few contentious decisions within the 90 minutes plus of game, in which no doubt we will get into. But we're just going to jump straight into this. But before we do, just a quick little reminder for those, if you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. It really helps us out massively. Give us a thumbs up on this channel. And if you are one of our audio listeners, please give us a comment, rate us 5 stars if you can, and tell all your friends about it too. Spread the word that the Toon on the Pod is on the rise. And let's get into this, starting with the lineups. So, Forest being the home team, will get their slide up first. I'm going to read out the starting 11. So, in goal, they've got Navas and Toon Old Boy, John Joe Shelvey, Gibbs White, Niakate, Johnson, Yates, who was captain in the squad for that. They don't believe he is their full-time captain. Aurier, Dennis, Lodi, Ayew, and Felipe. That's starting 11, Jack. Anybody in there that would give cause of concern before kickoff for you?
Well, Brennan Johnson was apparently a doubt for this game. He had some kind of injury after last weekend, and he's probably been their best player, certainly the biggest goal threat this season. So it was a bit concerned, I suppose, to see him in the team. But you just don't know what's going on with Forest. Like, obviously, we know John Joe well, and Chris Wood wasn't available for this game. But they've signed 30 players since the summer. So they signed a new team in the summer, and then they signed, a lot of players in January as well. So it's just impossible to know how they're going to line up, or really what they're going to do, or how they're going to play, which makes it a little bit unpredictable. Noticed that they had Andre Ayew as well, who I think they signed on a free in January after he rejected Everton or something like that. So Forest have been a real story like this season, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens with them. But yeah, I think John Joe there. We on the preview, the lads are talking about Shelvey and how he would know a little bit about, or a lot about, the way that Newcastle were going to play, and how we might set up. So he was a bit of a mole in the camp there. But yeah, the Forest's team is just kind of a bit all over the place, really. Very random, kind of hodgepodge of a team. So it was always going to be interesting to see how they played and how it worked all together.
Yeah, they can name, I think, was it 3 different starting 11s, and you'd still be guessing who's going to be up there. Bit of a weird way to make a return to the Premier League, signing all those players, but it seems to be working so far, as they're no longer in the bottom 3. So we'll get on to the Newcastle squad. Now, this was an unchanged lineup from the victory against Wolves at St James's. There was 1 or 2 omissions from this one, with the main one being Miggy. Now, it came to light just before kickoff, I believe it was, that he picked up a foot injury. Is that correct, Jack?
Thigh, I think it might be a thigh injury I saw. It was when the team came out, it was the middle of the night, so I wasn't on Twitter, so I didn't know what was going on with that. But yeah, I think it's a thigh, and he might be out for, I think I saw 6 weeks potentially.
6 weeks is quite a lot of game time for him. It seems to be the curse of the new contract for Newcastle players. Every time we get a new player sign a new contract, he gets injured. Just happened with Kraft at the Tranmere game. He signed you a contract maybe a week before, goes and does his ACL. Now Miggy does the same thing. I just hope Bruno doesn't sign his new one until the summer now. Fingers crossed. But going through the Newcastle lineup again, unchanged from the Wolves game. So we've got Pope in goal, Trippier as ever as captain, Shaw, Botman, and Byrne rounding up the rest of defence. Bruno, Sean Longstaff, Joe Willock, Jacob Murphy, Alan St. Maximin, and Alexander Isak in midfield and attack going through. Did you expect the same starting 11, Jack, or you're expecting maybe not knowing that Miggy was injured? Would you think he would come in because he got the winning goal against Wolves?
Yeah, I thought maybe Miggy might come back in for Murphy. Not that Murphy did anything wrong against Wolves, but just with Miggy getting the goal and having that little bit of a rest, I thought he might come back in. But there's not really much else we could have done. Like the bench is not very strong. As soon as we're missing Joe Linton, obviously suspended, and Gordon injured as well. So when you're missing three midfielders, like the bench, we've got three left backs on the bench, and a couple of players there that will definitely not be here next season. So the only real bright spark on the bench, I suppose, is Wilson, even though he's not been fit lately and he hasn't been in form. And then Elliott Anderson, who we're definitely going to talk about during the course of this. But yeah, the team, it was Eddie likes keeping a settled team that's been winning games anyway. So you might have kept the same team as it was. But when you've got Isak up front, who's obviously getting his eye in a little bit, and the midfield performance was really good against Wolves as well. So and that back four and the back five really is going to be it's going to be a memorable one, because they've been, unmovable all season pretty much. It's been the same players have played every week. So possibly Target to come in at some point maybe, but Byrne was good against Wolves as well. So yeah, I think it was a pretty standard team, and I thought that we would have enough to win this game.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on Alan St. Maximin retaining his starting position, given the fact that he had a fairly shaky game against Wolves, went off with what looked like to be an injury, and it seems to be the case in this one, but again, we'll get in a bit more detail of that. Did you expect him to retain that position, or would you have thought maybe somebody could have came in just to give him a bit of a rest, like what we did with Miggy?
Well, he seems to get injured every game, so it's hard to know like whether he's got, and it seems to be kind of different injuries. It's not like a recurring injury, whether it's just the way he plays, or he's being asked to play a different style now that's having an impact on his body, or whether he's just not fit. I don't know. But there wasn't any talk after Wolves that he was injured, going to be injured long term, and with the lack of other options, like possibly Anderson maybe might have got a start, or Richie's been getting more minutes lately as well. But when Maxi's available like he was today, I think he's going to play in the absence of the other players. Having said that, though, with the way things went in this game, this might be the last time we actually see him start a game for Newcastle. I think that could actually transpire, but we'll probably talk about that as we go through.
Absolutely. So we'll get starting with the game. First few minutes, it was more of a rugby match, to be honest, rather than a football match. There was a few tackles flying in. And I think it was in the first 4 or 5 minutes that Shaw went down with what looked like a rolled ankle with a challenge from behind from Andre Ayew. The ref, we'll talk about him later on as the game goes on for obvious reasons. But do you think that was a prime example at an early stage of the game to cut tackles like that out by showing an early yellow card? And do you think it was justified, a yellow card on Shaw right at the beginning of the game?
Well, I think it was justified because it was a tackle from behind, and it wasn't the only heavy tackle that went in at the beginning of the match. I'm not going to sit here and complain about aggressive football or sort of controlled hard tackling, because I think we've done plenty of that this season. But it was quite obvious from the beginning that the ref could be about to lose control of the game, and it always felt like Forest were kicking us quite a bit. I think they were crossing the line from controlled aggression into just dirty play and fouling. And then there was quite a few bad tackles that went in. Yates had done a couple in midfield as well. He was kind of quite noticeable for just running around kicking people to begin with. And then Shah obviously got injured, which was a concern. That happens every game to Shah. He always seems to get some kind of knock. It just happened a bit earlier today, but he looked really in pain, and Lascelles was warming up. Looked like he might have to come on. But yeah, back to your question, the referee lost control of the game in the first part of the first half, I think. And then when he eventually did give a yellow card, it was I think it was for Dennis for a tackle on Trippy, which probably wasn't even a yellow card decision. Yeah. So he didn't. I just don't think he did himself any favors through the whole game. And the standard of officiating was dog shit basically in this game from the beginning. And the Forest manager said that it was a strange performance by him, and I think he was just trying to be polite there because it was bad, and it wasn't just bad for us. Although the main call was bad for us, but it was bad for both teams. He just didn't seem to. It's just another indication of the bad standard of refereeing in the Premier League. Which, when you've got such a high profile league with so many eyes on it all the time, I just don't know why they can't. I know refereeing's a hard job. I know it's not easy, and everything happens really quickly. But you need the best people in to do this job, because it's like today was just a really clear example of just a referee who just didn't do his job properly.
Yeah. Best of all, though, he won't even be held accountable. That's the annoying thing. Very, very rarely does the PGA, MOL, or whatever it is, come out and issue a statement, and they'll always defend the referees. But it'd just be nice to come out and say, you know what? Yep, I'm human. I made a mistake. Sorry. Let's move on, and I'll try and do better the next game. But it's never like that. But hopefully he'll not be around next week. He'll be given his little suspension, or maybe demoted to the championship, whatever it is they want to do with him, because that was a dog awful performance from him. But again, we'll get into more detail. One.
And it's not even like the big decisions. It's just his general approach to the game meant that he didn't have control of it. So I don't know whether referees go out in certain games and think, right, I'm going to let the game try and let the game flow here, or I'm going to sort of stamp my authority early and book someone. Like maybe if it's it depends who the teams are, but then they have to kind of be a bit adaptable. Like you can't just have people going around kicking people for the first 10, 15 minutes. And it doesn't matter which team it is. Like if that happens, which it did today, you have to do something about it. Otherwise it'll just carry on. But then with him, like I said, when he did do something about it, it was for the wrong tackle, which was just a bit strange. So I think he might have gone into this game with a mindset of how he was going to approach it. And then when it wasn't going how he thought it was going to, he just didn't kind of know how to adapt to it. That's just how it seemed. Like that, there's no kind of evidence for what's going through his head or what his plan is, but that's how it seemed. It was a really strange and just an overall bad performance.
Yeah. So we'll get on to the first real chance of a game. This came on the 6th minute, where Trips plays Murphy down the right. Good little bit of passage of play because it came from a counter attack. He squares it to Willock just along the 6-yard box. Everyone's expecting Willock to score, expecting the net to bulge, and somehow he puts it high and wide. Do you see that as good defending where they've put him off, or do you see that as a really bad miss, Jack?
It's a really bad miss. It's not the first one that we've done over the last few weeks. He has to score that. He has to get a shot on target, and if he does get a shot on target, it's probably a goal. It was coming at him quite quick, but he just sort of, his foot wasn't strong enough to get a good connection on it, and he just ended up skying it. I'm sure our players work on finishing in training, but in a match, it's not the first time it's happened lately. There's been quite a lot of that, but that's I'm not going to be too harsh on Willock because he played well again and he was fantastic against Wolves. But yeah, Eddie referenced this chance and he said that would have been a good settler for us because we were kind of on top, and just to have the early goal would have been really good. A bit like we got against Leicester away when we got the early goal and just went on to win that comfortably. That could have happened again today, but yeah, it's another example of a missed chance, and we're going to have to sharpen this up for the last 12 games and for next season, and I'm sure we will, because we know that it's been an issue lately.
Yeah, I totally agree with him. I think it was a an easy opportunity missed. And I think Willock's reaction said it all, to be honest, had his head in his hands, and he knows for a fact he should have done much better on that one. But as the opening 15, 20 minutes drew on, we started to grow into the game with some brilliant passages of play, but not really testing their keeper. But then on the 20th minute, I believe it was, 26th minute, sorry, they had a pretty decent chance where Shelvey just decides to lob a ball pretty much down our left-hand side. And it was pretty much a hit and hope ball, to be honest, in which would you normally consider Botman bread and butter style defending, mop it up, pass it to Trippier, to Shaw, or even back to Pope just to put into touch or continue playing. But he just does a blind pass back to, I think he's trying to get it back to Pope. And he just has got no idea, no spatial awareness of who's around him. And he just plays in, I can't remember, Dennis, I think it was. Just plays in Dennis, who actually really good finish from him, taking his time in a little chip finish over Pope and Trippier. Were you surprised at that time that, or actually thinking, this is typical Newcastle. We've been all bark but no bite. And then suddenly it just goes and kicks us in the arse. But it was Botman who made the error, considering he's been Mr. Dependable all season.
Yeah, but last week it was Trippier that made an error as well when he fell over. So there's been defensive errors, a few that have kind of crept into the game that we've conceded goals from. This was just a bad mistake from Botman, who it's his first foot wrong he's put all season. Like, he's been generally fantastic this season. So he just didn't look. Maybe he just wasn't. Maybe he didn't get a call, or he didn't know that the player was there. But a quick glance to his left, and he would have seen that, and he probably would have just put it out for a throw in, or controlled it and tried to take it away. So when you've missed a chance like Willock did, and when you've hit the bar as well, I think we'd hit the bar once by this point. It's you get that sinking feeling again. But at least it was early enough in the game that we had plenty of time to come back. But it's still encouraging that we're not creating like many chances each game. Like, I think Forest, we'll look at the stats at the end, but they really didn't have that many shots, many chances, same as Wolves. So even though we're conceding a bit more than what we were, it's not through kind of structural problems with the defense. It's through individual errors. And the Liverpool game was a bit like that as well. So I'd be a lot more worried about this if it was happening regularly, or if it was Titus Bramble style clangers every other game. And Botman's not going to do this again for a long time.
Nah.
But it was still very distressing to go down at this point, because we'd been the better team, and it wobbled us. It wobbled us after this. So it took us a while to get back into the game after this. But we were chatting in the chat before, and you were talking about Botman as well, and just saying that you will let him off with this one, won't we?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. He's been my player of the season so far, purely because it's just his debut season as well. And he came from a farmers league over in France, and he was written off because he was too slow. But like I say, he's just been Mr. Dependable. Like I say, he's got that one per season error he's allowed to make, and he can have that one this time, as long as he doesn't do it again. He'll be all the way to the Euros now, because he got that Dutch call up just a few days ago. So well done on him, thoroughly deserved as well.
I don't know how he didn't. How did he not get a Dutch call up before? Like, I know they've got some good defenders, but he's phenomenal for his age as well. So I don't think he'll be out of many squads from now on, as long as he stays fit. He's going places with us, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And his reaction at full time, I thought, was absolutely superb. But again, we'll touch on that as we get closer to it. As you mentioned, we were a little bit nervy after that goal went in. Probably rightly so as well, because it was totally against the passage of play. Again, just a hit and hope, which they got a bit of fortunate luck with. But then on the 35th minute, a good friend of ours, the crossbar, is in the right place at the right time again, as the ball falls loose to Longstaff on the edge of the box. He takes a shot, which it looks like he's just trying to side-foot it, pass it into the back of the net effectively. But it takes a wicked deflection, loops over the keeper, who, if I remember rightly, was nowhere to be seen. So if it had been just an inch or two lower, that's looping underneath the bar, and we're back to 1-1. Longstaff standing there with his head in his hands. And at the moment that ball was cleared, where you think, oh, God, here we go again. This is Newcastle United book 101, and it's just not going to be our night again. Is that what you were thinking? Because I know it's certainly what I was thinking.
Yeah, like you've missed a good chance and you've hit the woodwork twice and you've conceded a goal from a bad defensive error. So it's going to take a while, I think, for us to get out of the mindset that this is typical Newcastle and everything's shit and, it's all going to be bad and we're going to lose, because that's not the way things have been going lately. So this was the first game, I think, that would actually come from behind to win all season. But yeah, I was thinking, oh God, here we'll go again. We've missed a chance. We've hit the woodwork twice, and we're losing. Yeah, it's a good job. We managed to turn things around, but it was feeling at that stage like, yeah, it was going to be a difficult night, and it was hard to see. We just needed a bit of luck. I think it was obvious we just needed a bit of luck at that stage, which was just not there in the first part of the game.
No, it absolutely wasn't. In the last 10 minutes of the first half, we were in control of the game, but we weren't causing any major opportunities or anything. Keeper may have had the odd ball bobble to him, that sort of thing, but nothing where he's pulled off a worldie or anything like that. And as half time's approaching, we're thinking, we're still in the game. It's only 1-0. Let's come out the second half fighting everything. I think we all talked about that in the group chat. But then on the 47th minute, there's a little bit of a scrappy play right on the halfway line on the right-hand side. Willock dispossesses a Forest player. Managers beat 1 or 2. Plays a slick 1-2 with Maxi, who's well out of position this time, over on the right-hand side. And he then manages beat another man, gets a good little dink cross into Isak. And somehow Isak has managed to get the ball from behind him on the volley, get it in off the post. We go in the break 1-1. First of all, what a finish from Isak. And Willock kind of makes up for his miss earlier on in the first half with some brilliant play with Maxi down that right-hand side.
Yeah, and it was fantastic improvisation from Isak to get his shin on it. I think he shinned it in the end. So he's got those long, gangly legs. So the ball was kind of behind him a bit, but he managed to sort of fling his right leg out and shinned it in. And it was a really clever finish. Willock and Maxi was, good play out there. But Willock's been doing this for a lot of the season now. He's been... when he drives forward really well and he puts some good balls into the box. And the most pleasing thing about this was it was a bit like the Bournemouth game, where we were playing better in this game than against Bournemouth, but to score just before half time is a real good sign when your team's doing that, because we're not thinking let's wait and let's get into the dressing room and have the team talk and let's see what, let's regroup. We're thinking let's score, let's get back into it now. So to score in injury time at the end of the first half for another away game was a really good sign, and it's just a real signal of the character of this team. I think the quality was there in the first half, apart from that when we had the little wobble after they scored. But we absolutely deserved to go in at least level, if not ahead, I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Balance of play, we were the better team by far. Again, just that clinical finishing, just lacking there. Now, half time, and as the cameras pan back to the pitch side, we noticed Elliott Anderson on the touchline getting ready to come on for Maxi. Now, Maxi was getting, I would want to say, a fair bit of abuse almost on the chat or on other forms of social media, whatever like that. But he certainly didn't play anywhere near the Maxi that we know. And he was taken off at halftime. He had the one contribution which led to the equaliser, so credit him on that one. What were your thoughts on his 45 minutes? And do you think his injury is as bad as what it could be? Because he was taken off, I think it was 60 minutes against Wolves and now 45 minutes against Forest today.
Yeah. It's difficult with Maxi, isn't it? I don't know if his body is used to this kind of football that he's being asked to play at the moment. He's missed a lot of the season. He's come back into the team because there hasn't been that many other options really. He's played because of that. I don't think that he's going to be here long term. I think that decision might already have been made that he's going to be sold. Mainly because he's one of the few players we've got in the team that's worth real money that we might actually want to sell. Because we're not going to be wanting to sell Botman and Bruno or Isak or any of those guys. So I think he's probably the most saleable asset we've got. He didn't play very well today, but I'm aware as well that it causes a big split with him. He's kind of held to higher standards a little bit, which is not fair, not always fair. But I think it's because he can do it and he does have the quality that when he doesn't, it's a bit more noticeable. And he doesn't have kind of 7 out of 10 games. He has 10 out of 10s like against Man City, or he has 3 or 4 out of 10, unfortunately, which is what he had today. And it wasn't really a surprise when he was hooked at half time. I don't know if he was injured. The suggestion seems to be that he was. But I think even on the balance of play, like on the way he was playing, I think it was the right call to bring him off. And I think, I'm not sure he would have started if Gordon and Joe Linton were available. But we've said from the beginning about Maxi, especially after when he got injured, we said, this second half of the season for him is massive. I think he's playing for his future at the club.
Definitely.
So, and I don't think so far he's done enough to justify his place in the team. He is a good squad. He could be a good squad player if he's happy to play that role and if he can get his body right. And I'm really grateful to him for all he's done for the club over the last 3 or 4 years. He saved us from relegation. Him and Dubravka probably saved us from relegation a few times. But whether this is an adjustment period for him, whether there's a role for him, I'm starting to think that there might not be from next season. So it wasn't a surprise when he was brought off. But having said that, like I said, he did play a role in the goal, just like he did at Bournemouth as well. So even though he's not getting assists, he's still playing a part in the goals. He's just a player who massively divides opinion, but he hasn't done himself justice, I don't think, over the last couple of games where he started, unfortunately.
No, totally agree. But Elliott Anderson comes on, and it's a refreshing change to see him getting a full half rather than 5 minutes of time to go when the game's already put to bed, and he can't really impact the game. But what an impact he had from the second he came on that pitch. I mean, 3 minutes in, he was a deep cross from Murphy. I think it was just outside the 6-yard box, and that volley that was going straight in the top corner if Navas hadn't have got his fingertips to it, and that would have stung his hands out. And that was a cracking introduction to the game from him. Yeah.
Anderson is a quality footballer. You can just tell, like some players you can just tell have got quality. Isak's one of those players, the form he's been in, but you can just tell by looking at Anderson, like the way he touches the ball and the way he moves, that he's quality. He's got a lot of talent as a footballer, natural talent. He played on the left-hand side for Bristol Rovers when he was on loan there, and he scored pretty much every game. He was absolutely amazing. And Joey Barton called him the Geordie Maradona. But we've used him more in a kind of central role because that's where he's been needed a little bit. And he hasn't got as many minutes as he would have wanted. And I think a lot of us would have liked to have seen him go out on loan to a championship club and get some development there and get some minutes. But he's very highly rated by Eddie Howe for obvious reasons, and he was really unlucky against Liverpool when he started and then had to get subbed off when Pope got sent off. So it was really good to see him get 45 minutes. He's been judged a little bit harshly sometimes because when he has played, he played against Sheff Wed in the cup, and I think he started another cup game where he wasn't playing with the first team as such. So it's not fair, I don't think, to judge a 20-year-old kid playing in a much changed team. So I was pleased to see him come on. Obviously, he scored a goal which was bullshit disallowed, which we're going to talk about. But for him, it was really good to see him come on and to impact the game like he did. Not any player can have that shot like he had, like you just talked about. That's a really hard technical skill to pull off, which he did, and that's what I mean. You can just tell he's good. He's good, and he's going to be good. And he's only 20, and he's going to be a big player for this club. I'm convinced of that.
Now, a few minutes after that one, there was a loose ball he chased down in the Forest box, which he did manage to get the ball, and his shirt was being pulled left, right, and centre. What were your thoughts on that as a potential penalty shout? And was Anderson too honest in staying on his feet, but obviously done the right thing in doing so? Do you think that could have been a potential penalty shout?
Well, yeah, we've talked about this with our team before. We sometimes don't appeal for penalties. And even the commentators were saying maybe he was too honest and he could have, if he'd have gone down there, it would have given the referee a decision to make, or at least given VAR a decision to make. But then we were criticizing Raul Jimenez last week for going down when he could have stayed on his feet. So
yeah,
it's what can you like? We need to be a bit smart, I suppose, and we need to be a bit cute and a bit clever about these things. But he just wanted to play football. He wanted to stay on his feet and try and get the ball. So I'm not going to knock a player for being honest like that. And you're never ever going to get a penalty for a shirt pull if you don't go down, or very rarely is that going to happen.
I totally agree. But now, fair play for him for staying on his feet, keeping the ball alive. It shows the credit of the quality of the player that he is and is going to be. But as the second half started to get into its middle stages, there was a little bit of balance of play where we had the few shots on Bruno. John Joe Shelvey had 2 opportunities in very quick succession. One where I think he tested Pope and then his second shot went wide. If he had scored, would have been interesting to see if he celebrated. And that would have literally been headline news, as the commentator said. And it would have been, again, the Newcastle curse, because I think every ex-player scores against Newcastle. It's just one of those given things. You know, it's like daylight and the moon at nighttime. Just one of those things. But what did you think of Shelvey's performance within that game? Because he hasn't actually played a lot of football. And obviously, there's the 7-year stage he had with us. It was pretty much 7 years to that January, I think it was. And there was a little bit of needle with 1 or 2 players. He had a few little chips at Bruno every now and again, which a lot of people on social media are saying, "What are you doing, Bruno? What were you doing, John? You know, that's kicking away at his ankles, that type of thing." But that's what he done for us. He was a bit of a dogged type player. He didn't mind doing the dirty stuff. And it shows that he's playing for the shirt. And out of respect, I think he done quite well. But I think it just goes to show his place in the squad was well up, because there's nowhere near he's at the level that current midfield is.
Yeah, he probably would have got a game recently when we've been really short on midfielders, but he would have taken a while to get fit and get into our team anyway. And you know, he did have a couple of injuries, so he should have probably been sent off in this game. He was sent off a few times for us, but there was a bad tackle on Bruno where he could have been sent off. It's always interesting when players who obviously know each other well and who are friends, you know, he was talking to them all before the game. It's interesting when they come up against each other, but they're professionals, you know. Like, he wanted to win for his new club. They're going to be in an almighty relegation dogfight. So he's left Newcastle with a lot of goodwill in the end, which I'm very surprised about. The way he turned it around, I never thought he was going to. And there's been multiple times over the years when I would have been happy for him to get kicked out or go on loan or go on a free transfer, even, you know. But then he had periods where he was good. He was really good for us. So I'm pleased that he was on the losing side in this game. But he's probably going to be a useful player with his experience for them. But he plays on the edge, and he needs to make sure he keeps his discipline a bit. Because, like I said, he was sent off for us a few times, and another referee might have taken exception to a bit the way he was playing a bit today as well.
He was booked in the game as well, I believe, for that challenge on Bruno. And there was one challenge on Isak as well, which, again, was another one which could have got a second yellow card. And, you know, those two will know quite each other well from time in the treatment room. They both spent a fair bit of it in there before the transfer window. So I reckon there'll be a little bit of banter between them after the game, your WhatsApp message, that sort of thing. But as long as it stays on the pitch, then I'm more than happy with that, because obviously he's fighting for his new club. And good luck to him in what he does in the future.
He came out and said something about us whinging or something, didn't he, as well? He was like, "Oh, I I didn't know I didn't realize they were going to winch so much. It was like, where's John Joe? You've been in this dressing room for the last the last 7 years. You know the way it goes.
Did he turn around and say, "Oh, we've got to go and dust ourselves down and move on to the next game"? Because I don't know whether someone's made that up on social media. Because if he did that, just appeared straight out of Bruce's book.
Which I saw that as well. I don't know if he actually said that, but it's a typical footballer thing to say, isn't it? So he probably did.
It really is. It really is. But now then, 64 minutes in, the ball is with Murphy, I believe it is, who crosses it into the middle of the box. There's a little bit of ping pong going around with the ball. It falls to Isak, who is actually on the deck at the time, I believe, as it's ping pong from Wilson and Isak. Isak chips it across to Anderson. Anderson rises like a salmon, heads it back across the face of goal, and it nestles in the bottom corner. The 20-year-old Geordie scores his first ever goal for the club, runs with raptures. The away end is delirious. Dan Burn looks like he's just seen his proud son score the first goal for his club as well. He's happy as a pig in shit with that one. And then VAR intervene. Would you like to give me your assessment on why it was given offside, why VAR are intervening with an offside call, and why it wasn't offside to begin with? 3 questions all in the one there for you.
Right. So I've been thinking about this a lot today because I'm just so glad we won this game, because I was ready to fly to England and march on the Premier League if this had cost us points, because this was an absolute shambles. It was a scandalous. The only reason that I know what this was given for is because Chris Foy, the ex-referee, was on the Optus coverage that we had, and he was explaining what had happened. So I think the reason this was disallowed is because Isak kicked it forwards when he was on the floor, and Longstaff was offside at that point, even though he was miles away from Isak. And then it came off 2 Forest players. So it came off Felipe first, and then it came off another Forest player. So Chris Foy and the referee have apparently come to the conclusion, the referee came to the conclusion that it wasn't a deliberate touch from the Forest player. So if that wasn't a deliberate touch from the Forest player, I think he needs to probably get a new job or play a different sport or something, because it was quite a good clearance. He swung his left foot at it, and he cleared it, and then it was the other Forest player, Lodi, I think it was, who also swung for it and kicked it. Then it bounced off Longstaff and went back to Isak. So the referee has decided that it was a non-intentional touch from the Forest player. Like, he's basically decided that it was a deflection, which I just don't understand that. How?
No.
Like, how? Like, he hadn't given that in real time as well. It was he said it was a goal. So maybe the fact that the VAR has sent him to the side has made him doubt it a little bit. Maybe he doesn't know the rules properly. Like, you would hope that the referee would know the rules, but it was such a bad decision. And without Chris Foy coming on and explaining that, which then Tim Sherwood and Jermaine Defoe, who are neither of them are particularly known for being positive towards Newcastle, they both said that was nonsense as well. And I've seen that Keith Hackett, who used to be the boss of the referees, I think, he was on Twitter saying that it was nonsense as well. But he said that is why it was given as offside, because Felipe and the Forest player were deemed to not have touched the ball intentionally. And the worst thing about it is that it's robbed a 20-year-old Geordie kid of what was probably the winner in a really massive match. So I just feel upset for him. Like, I'm so glad we got the win. Otherwise, I'd probably be in Dubai or somewhere right now on my way to London with my pitchfork. But because it was that bad, and I always think back to the Chelsea game as well last season, where we got screwed off VAR really bad. But you never see a ref sent to the side for an offside an offside call. So when it was happening, no one knew what was going on. Like it was like, how? Like, how is this even a thing? And it's just, it feels like they're checking every goal to try and find a reason to disallow goals. And Forest got lucky with this one. So yeah, that's kind of my understanding of what it was. It was an absolute piss take. And it was like we were talking about the referee before and his general performance. But this, yeah, it was an absolute shambles that this was disallowed. And it's just another example of VAR. Nobody knows what's going on. And even Shearer was on Twitter as well, saying that he was watching the match in the pub. So he's watched matches as a fan and he's watched matches as a broadcaster and a pundit. And he was quite vocal previously about how with VAR he went and saw and he was shown how it worked and everything. And he said that this is not what it was supposed to be for. And it's the application of this is just bullshit, basically. And that was what happened today. So yeah, it could have, if we hadn't won this game, it could have been a lot worse than what it was. And I just feel upset for Elliott Anderson that he's been robbed of a goal.
It was a cracking header as well. Like he doesn't look like a tall lad, but he's got a hell of a leap on him. And that Forest defender is not exactly small either. He came close against Wolves at Molyneux earlier in the season when he crashed one against the crossbar in the 90th minute or whenever it was. He's getting closer. That goal will come. But yeah, devastated for the lad. But like I say, his time will get there. Now, here's a little question for you. If you had to, on a scale of 1 being the correct decision, or 10 being a case of Joe Willock being pushed in the back in the Palace game, where does this referee blunder land on that scale?
Well, I don't know if with Willock, was he not? He wasn't shown. The referee wasn't shown the camera angle or something, was he? So he was just shown in that game that Willock jumped into the goalkeeper. So that was more of a VAR error, I think. But this was a VAR. Well, I don't know. Like the VAR said to the ref. The VAR must have said to the ref, there's a bit of doubt here. I think it might not have been an intentional touch, which is obviously bullshit and nonsense and bollocks. And then the referee has gone over and agreed with that. Whether he felt under pressure to do that, I don't know who was in the VAR, but this is where it would have been good to hear what was going on between the ref and the VAR as well.
Yeah.
So fans knew what was going on, but. So I would say that they were both complete clusterfucks. They're probably on a par, to be honest. Like they're both been terrible decisions. The Palace one is worse at the moment because we didn't win that game and we lost 2 points. But then this one's worse because it's a Geordie boy. It's a Geordie boy having a great goal ripped away from him. So they were both just shocking, terrible decisions and examples of the shit show that VAR unfortunately is in the way it's currently being applied.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more on that one.
But did you know what was going on? Did you have any idea?
No, not a clue. I don't even think there was not one person in that ground that knew what was going on except the ref and those back in there, the VAR HQ, because it was like an absolute shit show. I've never seen such a bad call since VAR came around. And you're right about Shearer as well, because when VAR first came around, 4 or 5 years ago, whenever it may be now, Shearer was an advocate for it. There's absolutely no way he could be an advocate for it now, not with the shit show that it is. He'd just be the total opposite, if anything. And I think he's proven with a few word tweet on as the game was going on, he just said "fuck off VAR" or something along those lines. So if he was an advocate, he certainly isn't now. Not off that tweet anyway. But that was a kick in the bollocks for both fans and players alike, especially Elliott Anderson. But we could have let our heads drop. We could have just sat back and go, you know what? It's not going to be our night again. Let's just play for the point. It's well earned because we've come from a goal down effectively. But we didn't. We stayed strong. We kept on pressing. Again, we didn't really test the keeper as well as we probably should with a few tame shots, or they got some well timed blocks in from Bruno when he was about maybe 6-7 yards out. But they also had a chance as well when I think it was Shaw who misplaced a ball into midfield, and If I remember rightly, it was Johnson that was running down on goal. But luckily, Pope stood firm, and I think he bounced off his leg, but managed to clear it. That was pretty end-end as it started going on. But then 6 minutes of added time were put on the board, mainly because of the time taken for the VAR clusterfuck, as is so called it, to be resolved. And in the 92nd minute, big dog, Alexander Isak, chips was it Willock, sorry, that chips the ball in Isak? Can't remember which way it was.
Willock cross. Yeah.
Willock cross in Isak. And Isak looks like he's got his head onto it, couldn't quite tell. But the arm was up in probably the most unnatural position you've ever seen in your entire life. It bounces off his arm. There's a little bit of weight and judgment from the ref. However, the away fans called it instantly. You could even see Trips, who's way back in his right back position. He called handball straight away, if you see the wide angle view of it. You think it was a penalty and it was the right call to make?
Definitely was a penalty, yeah. It was close to him, but like his hand was above his head and the ball, it's hard to know whether the ball was going in or not, because it was like a glancing header off Isak. But you can't put your arm up like that. Byrne got penalised for one like this against Brentford earlier in the season.
Yeah.
You just can't put your hand up like that in the box. So I think it was definitely a penalty. And I shouted for it straight away, and it was a bit weird. Like, it went a bit quiet, and it didn't seem like that many of the players that I could see were kind of screaming for it. I don't know who actually had a good view of it. You just said Trippier did, so that's good. But it would have been another scandal if that hadn't been given. So the ref didn't have any choice with this. It was a clear penalty. And then that just made us think, oh God, what happens if we miss? Which is what your mind immediately goes to. But yeah, there was no danger of that happening in the event.
So penalty awarded, and you see Trippier standing over the penalty spot with the ball in his hand. What were you thinking at that moment?
I was thinking, I trust Trippier. I was thinking Trippier's a good penalty taker, but I was wondering why Isak didn't have the ball and why Isak wasn't going to take it. Bobby made us laugh in the chat. He said that he almost had a stroke or something when he saw Trippier when he had Trippier with the ball. So it didn't really occur to me what was going on, which was very clever. It didn't occur to me that this was all to take the pressure off Isak. But I was confident Trippier could have scored it, but I wanted Isak to take it. I thought maybe Isak's just too exhausted because he's played 90 minutes and he probably might not be able to run anymore. But I wasn't very pleased about Trippier picking the ball up, but I wasn't pleased about anything at this point in time. I was just picturing and envisioning and missing that, and then me having to get on with my Saturday, having missed a 93rd minute penalty to not win a game. So yeah,
but there's a photo going around social media where Trips is grinning like a Cheshire cat. Sorry, he's got a smile as wide as the Tyne. I don't know whether he's just trying to give a death stare to the keeper or whatever it is, because you can't see what he's actually looking at. But that picture is going to go down in Geordie folklore as one of the best ones in long memory, to be honest. That's going to be up there with Shoulder on the Bike and the Apple, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, he grin as wide as the Tyne, gives the ball to Isak. Isak puts it down, sends it too high into the right. Keeper takes a step to his left, and he's beaten all ends down. Again, the away end goes into raptures. Absolutely no way VAR going to rule this one out for any encroachment or anything. Because if they did, I think there would have just been an absolute riot, to be honest. But yeah, literally seconds later, final whistle goes, and we secure what is, in my opinion, probably the most important win of the season so far. Your thoughts on the 3 points alone and the overall performance of the game, Jack?
Well, first of all, Isak, how do you stay that calm and collected? He's got ice running through his veins, that guy. Because I know it's different when you're a fan, but when you see the pressure that's on that penalty, it's like, I don't know how anyone doesn't just collapse into a heap when you've got that amount of pressure on you. But yeah, like I said after the cup final, I'm pleased that we've got a line drawn under that game now. Man City, we don't like saying this, but it was a bit of a free hit in terms of we didn't expect to get anything from it. And I would have been happy with 4 points, to be honest, from the last 2 games. So the Wolves was the really big one for me. I thought we really, really needed to win that. So I was pleased we did that, obviously. And then a point wouldn't have been terrible in this game. Forest were unbeaten at home in 9 games, you know. They're not
since
pushovers
September.
at home. But on the balance of play, we deserve to win. Absolutely. The fact that justice was served because we got fucked so bad by the ref, and then to win it in that way is just really special and really memorable for all of the away fans that were there. But just the character of the team to come back from the Wolves from their goal that Wolves scored and to go on and win that game with not long left. And then to do this, to come back from the injustice and to score a last-minute penalty and to get the goals, you know, like we needed to score goals, and we've scored 4 goals now in the last 2 games. 2 games which we want to be winning when we're going for the top 4, which we definitely are again now, you know. Whether we get it or not, there's a lot of football to play. But I think I would have been happy with 4 points. We got 6, so going into the international break with 2 wins on the bounce, and I think they're off to Dubai today or something, so they're going on the warm weather training. So it just sets the last 12 games up. It gives us a base for the rest of the season, and I'm really looking forward to the Man U game already because that could be a special one.
Especially with Casemiro not playing, because he makes them tick in the same way Bruno does for us. But let's get on to where the match stats in, full-time stats. So we got here, possession well in our favour, 62%. We had 15 shots to their 5, 4 of which were on target, 3 for them, 7 corners to their 3, 9 fouls for us, 17 for those. And I think I put a tweet out yesterday, just a few stats on their home form. And they've got the highest amount of yellow cards for a home team in the Premier League by a significant margin. It's a stupid amount of yellow cards. And I think the way they were playing this morning just justifies that in how many fouls that they do give away and just trying to break up play. But it does really work for them because they're just going out getting a shitload of suspensions, and then those players are going to be missing. But looking at those stats, Jack, do you think that is a fair reflection of how the game went?
I'd say so, yeah. I think we were by far the better team. We controlled the ball. There was just that period after they scored for 10, 15 minutes where we wobbled a little bit, which can sometimes happen. But we had more shots, obviously, more on target. We're still not converting all the chances we should, but I think that'll come. We need to sharpen that up still. And having Bruno back is just massive. It's monumental having Bruno back. It's no surprise whatsoever that we've started winning games again with him back, because he's the one who makes the whole team tick. Even if he's not sort of obviously playing outstandingly well, he still is playing really well. If you know what I mean, like he's not scoring goals or getting assists, but he's the one who, you know, that he sets the tempo for the whole team, and he's the one who retains the ball for us. So yeah, the stats back up the game. 17 fouls is ridiculous, really, because that we usually look at these stats and the fouls are around 11, 12 marks. So that signifies what they were doing, and in the first half, and that the ref kind of lost control of things. But yeah, stats backed up the win, and like I said, just so happy and so relieved that we got across the line.
Well, we'll go to the league table now, and it's starting to look a little bit rosier, just like it did a good few weeks ago. And we are sat in 5th, played 26 points. Played 26 games with 47 points. That's a nice, healthy return. Just above us, we've got Spurs, who play tomorrow morning, our time. I think it's a 3 p.m. kickoff in the UK, which is 1 o'clock for us. So we'll wake up to the result of that one. So Southampton, you can do us a favour there, please. So yeah, they've got a game in hand. There'll be 2 games on us effectively. But yeah, Spurs, Conte, his arse has got to be twitching like a rabbit's nose now, because we're coming for them, and not just them, but also Man United too. You know, we're 11 on games with them, but our next game against them, it's in James's. That is a massive, massive game, which no doubt we'll do a proper review on. But we win that game, and it's not just fourth spot that's up for grabs. Third must be up for grabs if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, and look at the goal difference. We've got 14 better goal difference than Man United, same amount of games played. So, like I said, if we win that game, we'll go above them because they play in the FA Cup this weekend. So it's looking better. It's nice to see the green on there against our name, and that's the fourth league win I think since the World Cup now as well, with the Leicester and Fulham and the Wolves games as well. So I think that's about right. You know, like I've been banging on about the balance of play and how we haven't been getting the points and we haven't been scoring the goals that we maybe should have. We've been underperforming a little bit, some of those stats. So this is looking more like, I think, a fair reflection of the whole season. And when you've only lost 3 games and when you've only conceded 19 goals, you know, we've still got conceded 6 less than any other team. So we're giving ourselves a good chance. We've got good home games coming up. We're actually going to do a podcast, I think, next week with having a detailed look at the run-in and seeing how it might go and which games we might want to target. But we've got Spurs and Brighton and Man United all at home. So we've clicked into gear just at the right time. And I think that's a good reflection of where we're at. And we deserve to be where we are, absolutely on merit.
So, got to throw you another bus a little bit here then, Jack. There's 36 points left to play for, if my maths is correct. 12 games to go. Out of those 36 points available, what do you think it's going to take to get Champions League football? What's your ceiling limit, effectively?
I did a predictor thing for the whole season the other day, and it took quite a while because you're predicting every result. But I think I had us on 66 points, level with Spurs and Brighton, but behind Liverpool by a point. I think I had them on 67 and I had them in 4th. I'm usually a little bit pessimistic when I do predictions about Newcastle, though, because I don't want to jinx us. So I think if we can get around the 67 or 68 point mark, so you're looking at another 20, 21 points, 7 wins out of the last 12. I think that might be enough to do it. Yeah, doable with the fixtures we've got. So I think if we can get around that mark, Liverpool have been inconsistent this season, but they've got some quite good fixtures. Spurs have been shit all season, but are somehow still in 4th. So I'm surprised. I'm a bit surprised that they're so high. But Brighton are good as well and in good form as well. So I think it's between those teams. I think Brentford and Fulham and Chelsea are probably going to drop off a little bit, or I don't think Chelsea are going to be able to catch us now. Hopefully that's not famous last words because we've got them on the last day of the season. But yeah, I think if we can get around the 66, 67 point mark, I think that might be enough for us. And I think that might have been enough in the last few seasons for 4th. I'm not sure, but it's around that mark anyway.
Aye, it is. So, just before we wrap this up, just going to get your man of the match for this game.
Probably Isak. Well, Isak, yeah, because he scored the 2 goals and he completed 90 minutes for us, which was good. There was good performances. Trippier was good again. Murphy was really good, and Murphy created 5 chances. I saw that stat. He created 5 chances.
Created more than the entire Forest squad.
Forest team, yeah. So I think he had a really good game as well. But when you score 2 goals and an assist, I'm going to give him the assist as well for Anderson's goal. I would say that Isak was the man of the match, with honourable mention for Murphy and also Anderson as well, who obviously had his best game for us when he came on.
Yeah, hard to disagree with that one. So I'm going to go with Isak as well. But that just about wraps this podcast up for today. It's another 3 points. Eddie and his mighty mags continue to march and charge to that Champions League spot. We are hot on the heels of Spurs and Man United. The next Premier League game is going to be an absolute barnstormer at St James's Park when we host Man United there. A little bit of revenge from the League Cup final wouldn't go amiss. We'll go above them in the table, and we could be sat in 3rd by the next time we do our next review. How good would that sound, Jack?
That would be absolutely fantastic. But yeah, after the little blip we've had and the little rut, just to come out of that and to have this break now on the back of 2 wins, I think it was just as important to get these wins as the earlier in the season when we'd only won 1 and 7 and we went to Fulham and we beat Fulham and Brentford, and those wins kick-started our season, and I think that these 2 could have a similar effect, and it just gives us such a good launch pad for the last 12 games. So yeah, and it's given us a good Saturday here in Australia, and it's given everyone in the UK a nice Saturday to wake up to as well. So everyone's happy.
Absolutely. Long may it continue. So we will leave it there. But before I do, just want to thank everyone who has watched on YouTube, everybody who has listened on the audio channels, whether it be Spotify, Apple Music, whichever that may be. Again, if you don't already, please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a 5-star rating on all the audio platforms as well. Follow us on Twitter at ToonUnderPod. We are also on Facebook and Instagram under the same handle. Come and say hello. You can see my and Jack's Twitter handles on screen right now. So I'm at JordyandOz85 and Jack is JackStanley86. Come and give us a follow. We'll follow you back. And again, we will see you on the next one. And thanks very much for joining me today, Jack. Come on, the Mags.
Cheers, Craig. Have a good one. See ya.
See you later, mate.